All right, me too. Come to 2020. 2020. Does everybody have worksheet 3? If you don't have worksheet 3, raise your hand one last time. Are we out of them? Are we out of worksheet 3s? All right, here's more 3s. We should have enough for everybody. Here you go. All right, here's the deal about worksheet 3. For those of you who didn't complete worksheet 3 for homework, during the break, I need you to complete worksheet 3. At least one or two in each section, okay? Because when we come back from break, we're going to have a discussion around those two questions, all right? So now that you have them, kind of look them over, think about them as we go through the class. All right? It's 6 o'clock. We're ready to start. Is everybody here? Tony, can you check the lobby? How many people are in the lobby? 0? Cleared. All right, good evening, everybody. All right, let's take a deep breath in. Ready? Exhale out. So this is what I know, that no matter what it took for you to get through this day, you are here, and I'm just blessing and knowing that your mind is open and receptive to whatever you're going to hear tonight that's going to change the power of decision in your life. We just welcome this opportunity because we're so very blessed to be together in our faith community, recognizing this opportunity to be collectively moving in a direction for our highest and best good. We bless all of our volunteers and our staff who've allowed this evening to unfold effortlessly and easily. And when we move into this night knowing that something wonderful is about to happen and each one of you are going to be a part of that. For this, we're so very grateful. We let it be so, and together we say, so it is. Amen. All right, you ready to go to work? All right, more volunteers. Now you get the worksheets. I always hold these off so that you guys, I know how you are. You guys like to look ahead, and you read ahead, and you're like, oh, it's going to be boring, I'm leaving. So we trap you here first. I could use some people from the back to come forward and help. If I could get a couple people in the back, there we go, hand those out. Terrific. If you need more, we have more up front. Were they working their way down? Did you get enough? Sure. Got it? All right. Did you want these? That one. All right. So, interestingly enough, when we start talking about this chapter 7 and 8, Hey, everybody, welcome Charles. The man of the hour. You sure you don't want to do this? I'll let you do it if you really want to. So, neither do I, but I'll fake it, right? So the past couple weeks, we've been talking about the power of decision. And interestingly enough, when we move into the last two chapters, we start moving into not so much about making decisions as it is about creativity and inspiration, all right? Because there's a thing about making the decisions. You have to have this imagination and creativity to figure out what it is you want to do next. Right. We can model ourselves after other people. We can look at their lives and say, I want to be like that. But how genuine and authentic is that for you? I think there are a lot of times we model ourselves after other people, and it never reaches our level of expectation because it's not authentic and true to us. Does that make sense? Yep. So we have to be ourselves here. And tonight we're going to talk about ways to decide to live creatively. That's going to be my goal. Are you ready? Yep. First thing, routine living does not make for happiness. You're efficient. I am really good at doing the day-to-day routine. Are you? I can get up and I can get everything I need to get done. In fact, I'm so accustomed to it now that I have a drill from the moment I get up to the moment I walk out the door. It has to do with how I make my coffee, how I feed my dogs, how I water my dogs, how I clean up the kitchen, how I unload the dishwasher. Everything has a routine, doesn't it? Do you agree that most of your life is based on setting up types of routines? Okay, here's the problem. When we begin to start setting our lives up on routine basis, it also flows over into other areas like our relationships become routine and efficient. Oops, somebody's being called. Right from the front row, they're calling me right here. Yeah, turn your cell phones off, please. If you haven't looked at it, make an adjustment. That kind of routine behavior, patterned behavior, is sometimes beneficial, but sometimes what's the difference between a rut and a grave? Depth. Okay? If I continue creating this rut, next thing you know, I feel like I'm dead inside. When it comes to my health, if I continue to do the same thing with my health or my relationship to my health, when I'm doing the same thing how many people have had a relationship where, let's just say, things became stale? Anybody? Many times we get into a rut and we lose our sense of inspiration and creativity, and then we wonder why we're waiting for someone else to inspire us to be engaged in the process. When the reality is, it's my job. If I'm in relationship with you, it is my responsibility to be inspired and be creative. I can't wait for you to show up to the party. I just have to be who I am and be authentic and make the decision to be creative. If not, I become very efficient in all sorts of ways in our life. Does that make sense? Okay, so routine living does not make for happiness. You know, in the story that the Christmas story, there's that quote, there was no room for them at the inn. That's why they went to the, garage in Temecula, remember? All right. Did you like that this year? I know. I just love pushing the envelope. Pisses off a lot of people, but it's fun. All right. But that's symbolic. No room at the inn. Many people have this in their minds already. Symbolic of a closed mind that does not want new ideas to enter it. It is a mind of self-satisfaction. It is an area of curiosity. It's dead. How many people do you know where there's no room at the inn? Yeah. Interestingly enough, there's no room for new ideas. Why? Because they become married to their routine and their efficiency. And what's interesting is, and this is one of the things I've learned, and maybe you can share this with me. I try to get people to make room at the inn, but I really can't get the keys to open up the door of their minds to open it up far enough where there's room for improvement. There's an openness on their part. Has anyone ever banged their head up against the wall trying to convince someone that they need to come to church with you? Yeah. And you bought CDs for them? And you sent them magazines and articles and links to the YouTubes? And you told them how much they needed this? And how many people really rallied to show up? Unless you bribe them with food, they will not come. Brunch works, but that's the only thing I found. Brunch and bottomless mimosas, that will get them to come. But outside of that, people won't open their minds up. There's no room in the inn. They're locked up. And it's not my job to unlock them. When the student is ready, the teacher appears. Have you heard that before? And my philosophy has been this. People are always telling me this, and God bless them. They're like, I want to set up an appointment for my friend to come in and talk to you. And I'm like, does your friend want to set up an appointment to talk to me? Because if they don't, I'll cash your check for my counseling, but I don't think you're going to get anything out of it until there's room there. There's an openness. There's a willingness. So I'm asking you, what areas of your life are you locked up I noticed lately, and maybe it's just the way the world is working right now, that I'm seeing more and more people lock up their rooms, and things are becoming more polarized on every side. Remember a few weeks back I said, when you're listening, are you listening to understand or are you listening to respond? And so if you're listening to respond, then my guess is you aren't listening to understand. And in many times, we have to open up our minds to a greater sense of understanding. So that means I need to open up my mind. And my mind's closed in several areas. I become very judgmental. I'll be honest, there are times when I'm very judgmental. I will look at a situation and I will make up a storyline that fits my judgment. You know this. When you see somebody dressed in a certain way or a person who is on the street corner asking for money, whatever it is, you have created in your image a locked up idea of what they may be doing or why they're there, when the reality is you don't know a thing about them. How many people do you think look at you and have a locked up opinion about who they think you are? Hate that. Hate that. That's why I throw myself out there in front of you, because I don't want you to have any expectations of grandeur at all. I'm just a human being going through this experience just like you are. So I take the hits, the knocks, and I get my doubts, and I have all those things. I don't want you to think I'm a person that doesn't have that, because I want you to know that my room's open. Sometimes there is closed, but I'm open to them being open. Does that make sense? Yeah. All right. Why are people dull? Did you like this part of the chapter? Yes. Brilliant. Are you ready? Why are people dull? Here we go. Page 128. Well, 128 in one book, 139 in one, and 1 in 55. Love when they do a remake. All right. Why are people dull? Where'd it go? Wait a minute, 128. Hold on, I'm sorry. I was way ahead of my game. Yep, I got it. To be a dull person in this present world means that you have unconsciously rejected life and the curiosity that attends it. Whatever the power be that caused it to be on this planet at this time, I'm glad that it did so. I like this present world with its challenges and its opportunities. I like most of the problems I have to meet. I handle them with some intelligence. Let's stop there. Let's back up. How are people dull? They've lost their sense of curiosity. They're no longer curious. Think about this. If you're no longer curious about the life you're leading, they're selling urns up the street. You have to engage in this lifetime and this experience, especially now. Think about this. This was written in 1950-something. He is saying, I've never been more impressed by the world of challenges. Wait, what? Have you opened up to 2020? Look around us. Every idea that we have is being challenged outside in the outside world, isn't it? Down to our very core about how we treat other human beings. And so it's really interesting to maneuver this book, knowing when this thing was written, that get this crap is timeless. I mean, not the crap in the book. I mean, it's when I read from our textbook and I read about written in 1927, I'm thinking about, was this written last week? Because it applies now as it applied then, and I'm sure that back then they were thinking the way we do now. Does that make sense? Yeah. So what makes now so different than then? There's a little bit different. Now we know more because we hear more and see more. Back then, it was a newspaper, and the news was 3 days old before you actually got it. Now you're getting it in real time, right? So now we have to be more spiritually discerning and allow our curiosity to not become opinion rooted in judgment. Why are we dull? Because a lot of times we take our opinions, we root them in judgment, and we don't test that or push that. Some of the most interesting conversations I've had with people are those around religions that I did not understand. I'm going to give you an example. When I was in Fiji several years ago, when Carly was just a little kid, we made really good friends with a woman that was the housekeeper at the hotel, and she actually asked us to come over to her house for a meal. And she was a Christian, and she was married to a Muslim. And she asked us over, and I bring that up because when we went there, we met the husband's sister, who was about to be married in an arranged marriage. I know. So imagine my surprise when I'm sitting down to dinner and she's talking about their wedding, and I'm like, oh, well, how often do you see each other? Well, we met once for lunch 3 months ago. And I'm like, oh, this would never go over in Palm Desert. Ever. You met for lunch 3 months ago, and you're planning a wedding? And I said, okay, I don't want to meet, I mean no disrespect, but you need to explain this to me because I don't understand this. Because where I come from, this would be cause for like TV cameras and an uproar. It's like, can you explain this? And so she sat down with me, and the brother did too, the two of them, and then the mother actually came in and sat down, and they were explaining to me how this works in their families, and that the mother was in an arranged marriage, and she actually knows the family of the man that she's about to marry, and knows his background, basically his resume, and I still felt very uneasy, but I realized something. I have to ask the question because I didn't understand. I thought, well, this is the worst thing ever. But you know what? To her, it wasn't. In fact, this is what she told me. Now, I wasn't there. The whole community rallies around to create the wedding for them. They harvest crops and sell the crops, and then they take the money as a community that they live in to put on this big, big wedding. And the groom is put in one house and the bride is put in another. And the one who's officiating the ceremony goes to the bride and said, are you sure you want to marry him? And she would say yes. She went over to the other house. Are you sure you want to marry her? Yes. And I said, he does that 3 times. And I said, well, why would he do it 3 times? Because if ever at any time someone hesitated and said no, they would continue with the celebration, but the wedding would not take place. I thought, well, there's an out. I didn't understand it, but now I understood it. No, I don't know if it wouldn't be my first choice, but I'm not raised in that culture. And I realized that I was being very judgy about it. I was locked, and I had no curiosity. But once I opened up my mind and became curious, I thought, well, now that's kind of cool. She didn't have to marry him if she didn't want. But interesting, the culture, the community coming together, curiosity has to ask the question, or ignorance lives in bliss. Stupidity, bliss. Right? Curiosity has to ask the question. One has to be curious enough to ask the question. The mental hourglass prayer. Did you like that? Yeah. I love that. Here we go. The mental hourglass. The symbol of the hourglass comes to mind. The upper section symbolizes the infinitude of consciousness with all of its ideas. The lower section symbolizes the world or cosmos of form and shape, namely material existence. Your consciousness is that filter through point where the ideas above throw down to the world below. I like this idea. We take our ideas from this infinite presence. Remember, I'm always over here, the storehouse of good, right? Why am I so limited? It's because many times I don't use the key to get in the storehouse. I think that I know, and so either I think I know, or I've asked enough people that I think know. And I'm listening to them, or listening to my finite knowledge, instead of opening up to a bigger idea about what my life could look like. Are you following me? And we take this big thing called that infinite presence, right? The storehouse of good. And it goes through, for those of you who've been in my class, the spiritual pasta maker, yin, 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 which is that hourglass thing that only knows how to produce, right? It goes through. You can't, the only way to stop that hourglass from flowing is if you set it on a side that no longer functions. So in order for it to function, it has to go through that limited experience of the universal law saying, this is my stamp of approval, Joe. And notice it can't reject it. It accepts whatever I put into it. That little stem in the hourglass, it can't reject the sand. It can't go, nope, bad idea. It follows through into form. That's why thoughts become things. Seeds become plants. This act of becoming doesn't have the ability to say or reject anything. It just accepts. So when we talk about the mental hourglass, we need to make sure, is there a place in your life where you've tipped over the hourglass and there's no flow? Interesting thing about an hourglass, when the sand runs out, just like in the real world of form, whatever is formed now becomes another reason for something else to be created. So it becomes part of this recycled consciousness. So the effect of something over here now becomes cause to something over here. That's the mental hourglass when you flip it over. The key is not to keep repeating the same experience, all right? I love his prayer. Hold on, where'd it go? So close your eyes just for a moment. And just listen. There is one mind, God, the source and activity of all creative ideas. This mind is my mind now. I am one with the mind and the heart of being. My consciousness is its beloved creation. In me, God thinks. In me, God feels. I am an open channel for all spiritual ideas. My consciousness welcomes them, and my subconscious mind accepts them and acts upon them. There is no mental or emotional congestion in me. Everything that would impede the flow of God's ideas through me is now denied in my consciousness. All negative states are now erased and shall act no more. I am now the means by which heaven is revealed as earth, and earth is revealed as heaven. My uncongested consciousness is now replete with creative action that produces in my experience greater health, greater wealth, greater love and communication, and complete self-expression. I declare this is so. My subconscious mind accepts this prayer completely and acts upon it. And so it is. So when you're doubting whether or not you have this ability to tap into this, this is a great prayer. It's also a great prayer that, I'm not into that 7-step denial process, but I like part of this. It denies the ability for the old self to come back and take control and basically allow us to repeat the same thing over and over again. When are you going to step into that subconscious belief and say, this no longer has the right to come back? You are evicted and permanently evicted. So another question for you. What decision do you have to make to permanently evict a condition that keeps repeating itself that you have until this moment been unwilling to say, I'm done? Because there has to be a conscious decision on your part to say, I'm done. Have you ever been in a relationship where you're done? Yes. No, I mean really done. Yes. Like you're so done, there's not a fork that you're done. You're just done. I say this because when you're done like that, how come it's only in relationships and health and financial scarcity that we have the level of conviction to say, I'm done? We don't make a decision to do it before then. We have to go to the pain point, and usually beyond, where I'm either in a really big argumentative relationship where things aren't working, or I'm in a medical condition, or I got fired, before I actually say, I'm done. I truly believe part of the mental hourglass syndrome is that many times we are not willing to call it game over, and we exist long before the expiration dates that things should have been left alone and gone. So what brings us back? Why do we keep going back? I can tell you one of the biggest reasons. My ego cannot fail. So if you think you're right, oh, hell no, you're not right. I'm going to fight with you till I'm right. Right? I'm going to make sure I'm the last word when it comes to this. So we have to be careful, because the universe just accepts this as part of our experience, which is why the hourglass keeps getting tipped over, and I keep repeating that experience. And sometimes we keep marrying, or we're in a relationship with, or repeating the same health condition, or repeating the same job we're not happy with, or becoming bored. It's because we haven't changed the model. We keep flipping over the same hourglass. Does that make sense? You are not average. The infinite did not create you to be average. Many times we accept, a lot of times I remembered, God, and as a parent, I did this too, where I said, just pass the test. Just get a C. I don't want to fight about this. Let's just pass. And we do this, not just with our kids, we do this in life. We get in relationships. Oh God, if we can just get through this. I just want to get through this. I don't want to thrive. I don't say I want to thrive through it. I say, God, just get me through it. And then usually, once I'm through it, for some reason, I attract more reasons to go through other things. Very similar. Does that make sense? Does that ring true to anybody? So, the only way we set up average is if in ourselves we have accepted that average is going to be enough. I want to say something, but it's going to rub people the wrong way. Say All right, here you go. It's going to piss you off, but I don't care. Many people with their finances just go, you know what? I just need to get by. I have enough just to get by. And they've already told the universe, I am going to get by. Wing, 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 wing. What do I do every month? I just get by. Do you set yourself up to go on vacation? To support causes you believe in? To support the center? Or do you just kind of get by? And with that, I want to just get by or get through it mentality, you create a law that's you create a universe around you that's average. And actually, not even average. Because you're just squeaking by. So there's a lot of fear that if something were to go wrong, I don't know, like a crown. Anybody ever to replace that crown? Right when you have enough money in your bank account? You saved up enough in your rainy day fund that the crown broke, and it rained all over your rainy day fund, right? Okay? The transmission, your tires, whatever it is. The universe, by the way, just so you know, and you'll probably learn this with Charles, the universe always gets it cut. It's just how you decide to pay it out. If you've noticed, it always gets its percentage one way or the other. It's just how you design, how you pay that out. But you were not meant to just squeak by with an average existence. So what does that mean? You have to decide to be creative. How come I know a lot of people who are older, retired, and still really creative and making their mark? Yeah, because you live in Palm Desert. But outside of that, but are really creative. And they're in the flow of creativity, which brings the flow of income and happiness to their existence. You don't have to choose to be that way. You can choose to be creative. Oh, I love this. Jesus exploded a spiritual bomb. Did you read that? Here we go. I love his words. He actually uses that. Jesus exploded a spiritual bomb. He said, "And when thou prayest, thou shalt not be as the hypocrites are, for they love to pray standing in the synagogues and in the corners of the streets, that they may be seen by men. Then he proceeded to explain that they were to go within their own minds in quietness and find the source of all creativity. Here is an illusion of an apparent goodness not being a real goodness. It was merely a palliative for seeming to be respectable. It was false, and the wisdom in Jesus knew it. He made his followers face up to themselves. Wow. See, I'll just be out there again. I don't like this move among religions to be preaching anything other than love and doing it all over. And part of this reminds me, when I read that, it reminds me that I have to be less judgmental. They're doing what they think is right. And it challenges me because fundamentally I go, don't preach on the corner. Just, if you want to do that, just be inside. I'll be inside, you be inside, but you don't need to tell us or me that how I'm living my life is wrong according to you, or that, I have to be a certain way to get into some kingdom of heaven. You know what? How about if you just go within and be the best person you can, and I'll come from a place of love, and you do the very best you can, and we'll just kind of coexist together. Why can't we do a little bit more of that? See? But he takes a decision to not be judgmental with them, which I tell you, sometimes it pisses me off. When I hear ministers, oh my God, the worst is some of the ministers on TV. I mean, that they just, I feel like they're pointing their finger right at me. It's funny, my sister, we have a very different family religious background because we were all born and raised in Unity, which those of you know is religious science with more Jesus scrambled in, okay? And then my one sister became a born-again Christian. My one sister married a Jew and has basically become Jewish with her and her family, and then you have me, right? The problem my sister has, my one sister, who is real fundamental in her beliefs, is she can't find a church that meets her needs. Because as soon as they get to the part where they're telling her that her little brother, because he's gay, is going to go to hell, she quits that church. And she has not been able to find a church for decades because of the belief system that they're trying to impose upon other people. I like what he says in the book. Don't scream it, just live it. Which also means for us. For us. Because you know what? I think it's really easy for us to pontificate that we're new thought people and we're wonderful and accepting, but really, isn't that the same as what the other people are doing? Because in review, for those people to look at us, they're thinking the same way looking at us as we think about them. Why don't we just silently live our principles? Be the example. And then people will wonder why you're such in a good mood. Then you can tell them. Because I love where I go to my center. And that's all you say until they ask for more. But they have to ask for the more. Because usually what happens is when they ask that question and you say, oh, it's because I go to this great center and this great teaching. Do you want to come with me? Because I really think you could use it. And nope. So just go to the place where you're living by example. And you don't feel like you need to do it from the corner, but you're doing it from a place where you're authentic. All right? Mental clarification. There is no quicker way to make yourself ill, miserable, or poverty-minded than to have a closed mind. Agreed? Okay, so how are you going to open up yours? Because here I'm going to ask you a question. Sometimes do you get sick? Answer. Yes. Okay. Sometimes do you feel miserable? Yes. Okay. Sometimes do you feel lack or scarcity? Sometimes do you feel lack or scarcity? Yes. Okay, then guess what? My guess is part of your mind is closed. You want to think it's open. But if it looks like a duck, it's a duck. Right? So if you're experiencing these things, then you have to ask yourself, where in my life am I closed-minded? Where in my life am I turning off my good? Am I sitting in judgment of other people? Am I sitting in judgment? And I mean, I can tell you, I experience these things just like you do because there are times when my mind is closed up. And as soon as it's closed up, anything that's closed, there is no flow. Where there is no flow, there's death. That's why the Dead Sea is the Dead Sea, right? Everything flows in, but there's no flow out. So everything goes in there and it dies. It has to have the flow. So when we're experiencing illness or lack, limitation, or we're feeling miserable, we have to ask ourselves, where have I closed up my mind? What do I need to become open to? Ask the question. Instead of affirming the condition or Googling it, ask some questions. The power of creativity is curiosity. If I don't ask the questions, how will I ever change the condition? There has to be a part of me that has to be curious enough to start asking questions about, why am I stuck here? In relationships, sometimes we can get really stuck, can't we? Have you ever been miserable in a relationship? Anybody? Yeah, okay. Yeah. Yeah. People are raising up arms and legs, which tells you it's really not a good situation. When we're miserable in relationships, many times it's because we don't want to ask the question because we don't want to really hear the answer. Does that make sense? Have you ever been in a relationship where when you finally asked the question and you finally told yourself the truth, that you finally went, okay, I'm out. Or this has to change. Or I'm in and I want to get married. It doesn't always have to be out. We talk about the out, but there could be an in. You could be closed up to the in because of fear of what happens when what's happened before in a relationship that you were in, and now you don't want to repeat it. Are you with me? So you won't go in because you're going, well, the same thing's going to happen. Well, yeah, it will now that you just affirmed it. All right? Here we go. Moving on. With expectancy, curiosity, inspiration, and decision, the open-minded person is invincible. Say that, please. With expectancy, curiosity, inspiration, and decision, the open-minded person is invincible. I love that line from the book. Makes me feel like Wonder Woman. You know? I got this. Little bracelets. Does that make sense? But I love the words, expectancy. Are you expecting good? Sometimes we're not. Oh, look. Oh, come on. We're in an election cycle. You don't think there's speculation of expectancy on every side? Yeah, and it's dribbling over. It's stuff flows down. So it's flowing down from every direction. And are you expecting something bad or something good to happen? Is there expectancy on your part? Well, get ready. Same thing with curiosity. With curiosity, I said asking the questions. Inspiration. Usually inspiration isn't what inspires us. Usually it's desperation. Right? What do they say? Desperation pushes until inspiration pulls. Right? So many times I'm not inspired. Many times I'm just exhausted. Anybody? I'm like, I am so done with this. And then you wonder why you're not inspired? That's not exactly an inspired vantage point. Saying I'm done, I'm so done and exhausted. You think the universe is going to flow fabulous ideas through a consciousness like that? You just affirmed being tired and exhausted. There's no glimmer of light there. There's no possibility there. There's just accepting that you're tired and done and emphasizing it. Now, and the big part, decision. There has to be a decision. How many of you in the past couple weeks have said to yourself, man, you know what? This class has motivated me to start looking at some decisions I have to make. That's nice. How many of you actually made decisions? Okay, good. Because if I've inspired you to think about it, that's not enough. Because then you're still on the fence. There has to be enough. Yeah, what did you just say? I have to keep thinking about it. Thinking about it is prudent. Overthinking, not so prudent. Sometimes just bust the move. You know? That's like getting into the pool. You know it's going to be cold. You know that one? You're going, oh, God. And yet you try to ease yourself in, which is even worse. Because then you're just prolonging the pain as it hits certain pain points in your body. Until finally you're all the way in. Finally you go, oh, hell, screw it. You jump in, right? Why would I just jump in to begin with? You know? Pull the Band-Aid off. Bust the move. Here we go. Pleasure and fun. Who wants more pleasure and fun? Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Bring it on. Pleasure and fun are creative mental atmospheres. Too many people have too little pleasure in their usual week. It is the tonic that keeps the mind functioning in ways of health. There is healing power in a hearty laugh, just as there is destructive power in weeping and anger. Your mind needs the pleasure idea to offset the constant work idea. So let me stop there. You know, beer commercials have made a killing on the idea that you have to wait for the weekend to have fun. Right? It's like you work all week and now you can have the beer. Right? It's like, but it's almost like it's a 5-to-2 ratio. Who wants that kind of a ratio of happiness? 5 days of feeling miserable, 2 days of feeling okay. How about it? Not that I'm advocating that you drink beer every day. I'm not advocating that part of it. What I'm advocating is that, do you look at every day as its own complete cycle, or are you living a Monday through Friday existence, knowing Friday after work is the time when life begins until Monday when I have to go back to the grind? Have you made that decision that that's how you live your life in that routine? And I'm just saying weekends. You could have Tuesday, whatever the days are the week where you decide that these are the days I'm going to enjoy my life. Yeah. And then we had 3-day weekends. Ooh, more time for stuff. Okay. The race mind has overemphasized the work idea. We all know people who have so completely accepted the work idea that they cannot accept the pleasure idea. Do we know those people? They are their work, which I admire. But only there's a danger in becoming your work, because if your work changes, you may lose who you are. Sometimes I think there has to be more than just the working component of your life. There has to be another component that is strictly to have fun and enjoy life. And if your work is a pleasure, then great, but also don't just become one thing. Because many people are married to their work and not married to people. They're in a relationship with a job, not in relationship with people. They can communicate when they're in environment, but take them out of that environment and they're unable to communicate. The well-balanced person has a well-balanced portfolio. Does that make sense? Okay. This is a time to fast from all negatives. All right, so how many of you have ever fasted before? Okay, yeah? I remember in high school, during Lent, we all had to fast on Fridays, right? Fridays was the fast day. We all cheated as soon as we left school, but during school we fasted, right? When's the last time you fasted from negative ideas going in? I've been debating this, and I've tried this I've made it 48 hours. Social media. I like being on Facebook. I like being on Instagram. I feel like I'm catching up with my friends, right? But what I realize is I'm not just catching up with my friends, I'm seeing all this negative crap that keeps popping up on my Facebook, because my friends sometimes put all the negative stuff up, right? And I love them and they're my friends, but it's kind of hard because you're constantly putting this into your mind. So I thought, what if I started instituting like a 48-hour fast from my social media? In other words, I don't have to cut myself off altogether, but for like 48 hours, I'll take a break. What if you gave yourself a break for like 48 hours where you weren't on that? Are you willing to try that? What would it feel like at the end of 48 hours? Of course, you go back and you're like, oh my God, I missed all this stuff, right? What did we do before Facebook? Oh, I don't know, talk. You know what I'm talking about? You actually, yeah, before cell phones. My daughter texts me from her bedroom, and she's like 2 feet away. Like, stop, communicate, hello. We're raising whole cultures or whole generations of kids that text me from your bedroom? Are you kidding me? So, what are we going to do to fast from that? You are the authority that determines your ways of thinking. I always say, stand and authorize your experience. Spiritually stand up and authorize your experience. I know some of you have done some amazing work in this center. I'm not going to point you out, but I know your story. You shared your story, and I've watched you grow. And those are the people who actually stood up and said, "This is what I'm doing, not what I'm going to do. This is what I'm doing," and they declared it. And then the universe conspired to create it. This is what I'm doing. Yin, yin, yin. This is what they did. And they approached it with such tenacity and authenticity that in their mind, there was not even a discussion of failure. It wasn't even an option. It didn't even come into the mind because they weren't going to entertain it by putting any fire underneath that pot. Because they didn't want it to bake or, to broil at all. No, done. There was never, that element of doubt never entered it because this is what I'm doing. I'm doing this now. And now they didn't have it done. At that moment, they didn't have it done. But they're like, I'm doing this right now. And for some reason, instantly, things started to appear before them. And they walked to the next step, and then they walked to the next step, and they walked to the next step. And next thing you know, boom, there they are manifesting what they declared. So what are you declaring? What have you decided to change over the past couple weeks? What have you declared as the new you in this particular part of your life? What have you declared? You don't have to tell me, but do you know? Okay, all right. Here we go, page 142. God did not create you to be a drone. The infinite created you to be a valuable producer, but it also equipped you for pleasure to stimulate your creativeness. The infinite mind wants you to be happy. Never forget this and take every step necessary to ensure your happiness. Let's stop there for a minute. I know people that say, well, I'd much rather have you be happy than me. Do you know those people? Yeah, all they need is some wood and some nails and they're on their way. All right? They're sacrificing, and they think they're sacrificing for the greater good. Like, I'll do this for you. And you're like, just stop. The universe never set you up to do that. Now, to be compassionate, empathetic, absolutely. To be of selfless service, absolutely. But to say to yourself, I will sacrifice my happiness so you can be happy. There's a therapy involved with that. We'll go into that later. Okay, keep going down. You are the authority that determines your ways of thinking. Be that authority. Many times each day, check on your thinking to be certain that is the kind of thinking that will produce for you what you want to be produced. So here's a question for you. If you want to be the producer of your day, in other words, at the end of the day, I want to reflect as I'm getting into the bed going, okay, this is what I got up expecting today. This is what I expected, and this is what happened. Are my thoughts aligned with that intention that at the end of the day, all of these things will be done and done the way I want, or are unfolding in a way that I find to be acceptable and happy? Or am I waking up one day going, okay, I got a bunch of stuff on my list today. It's going to be a struggle. I'll try to do the best I can. And at the end of the night, you fall into bed going, oh my God, I'm so exhausted from doing all this stuff. And there wasn't any part of my mind process all day long that emphasized that I have the capability, that I have the energy and the wherewithal to do whatever I need to do. It was always, I'm setting myself up to struggle. Have you ever done that? Yeah, I always tease Trey. Some of you have heard this. Every time the alarm would go off for years, Trey would go, I just don't want to get up. And I'm like, you need to shut that up. Because every single day when you say that, you're telling your body that you're shut down. It's like you need to, when the alarm goes off, let's go. Now, I have to admit, I'm a one snoozer, okay? Wake me up. I'm a kind of a 10-minute move me out kind of person. But I don't sit there and go, no, I don't want to get up. No, I don't want to get up. I'm like, no, 10 minutes, and I'll ease into my day. So I'm not saying you have to jump out of bed like, there's some trumpet going off in some military installment, right? But I would say this, make sure that when the alarm goes off or when you're set to get up, there's a great sense of gratitude and an affirmation and expectancy of this great day unfolding. Because if you want to go to sleep that way, then you better have the expectation when you lead off that way. All right? Question.
I have a great idea for you.
Hold on.
Karen Drucker is coming.
Hang on. They can't hear you in the back.
Just set your alarm for this song to go off every day. I wake up and I say, today, I love my life.
Yeah, the one they used to sing during offertory.
Yes.
Every day.
Yes.
Well,
It's
I tell you
Karen
what.
Drucker. And
Yeah.
you just set your alarm for that and boom.
Yeah. You know what? That song's addicting too. Because, you sing it all day. You sing it all week. You're like, every day I wake up. Yeah, no, it gets to the point where that can be irritating. Okay, never mind. But I agree with you. The music that I wake up to is not some alarm that sounds like, the sky is falling. I have it set to meditation music. So it's like, welcome to the spa world, Joe. Slumber for 9 more minutes and 50 seconds. And then I will wake you again. And we'll start our day together. Works for me. All right, how we doing? Are we set for a break? Do we know? We are? We're going to take a break a little bit early tonight because we have a little group activity, but we're going to take a little bit longer break tonight because for those of you who haven't completed workshop or worksheet 3, I need you to complete that so that when we come back, you're capable of doing the closing exercise that we're going to do. All right? So if you haven't done worksheet 3, please do that now. For those of you who have completed worksheet 3, you get an extra long break. I will come and ring the bell in a few minutes, all right? Kathy has an announcement to make. And Kathy.
Thank you.
And all of our volunteers. We'll check everybody in.
Everybody's awesome. Did everyone get the number 3 sheet? No? Okay. So next week in the off week, if you're interested, what we've created is it's a 12-session, whatever you want to call it, self-study guide, which if you don't want to become a part of the accountability groups that we're going to form next week, you can still get the actual, exercises and workshops. It comes out to be 12. There's one for chapter 1, one for chapter 2, and then 2 for each of the content chapters for healthy, richly, creativity, and what's the other one? Happiness. 2 exercise contents for those, and then 1 each for the last chapter. Decisions, right? And you can do them on your own, or if you want to come be part of the accountability groups, come meet us here next week at 6 o'clock. We'll put together some little groups, and there's also things for group discussion. So if you guys then, in your group, decide, hey, we want to meet every week because we really want to take it on, or if you say, hey, we want to meet every 2 weeks because we need more time to dive deeper into the material and really take our time to go through the stuff, then excellent. Or if you want to do it on your own and take a whole month to do every chapter, that's totally up to you. But it's just another opportunity to deepen your decision-making power and expand that in your life.
Thank you, Kathy. So be here next week again and the off week, but guess what?
Hey. So I want to extend an invitation to each one of you to continue with your spiritual education and inspiration starting 2 weeks from tonight with the spiritual economics class, where we dive into the work of Eric Butterworth, who absolutely was a modern-day mystic. And his words, I believe, will ring on, like Dr. Joe was talking about before. I mean, it's just, when it seems timely, it's timely and it's beautiful, and his work always seems timely.
Definitely.
8 weeks, either at 9 a.m. for 3 hours or at 6 p.m. for 3 hours, 9 to noon, or 6 to 9. It's going to be fun. It's going to be interesting. We're going to have a good time, just like with Dr. Joe. I hope it's as fun as and interesting as being in a class with you. I'll bring all of myself, 35 per class, or $240 for the entire thing if you want to do it for accreditation. But come on out. The Spiritual Economics book is required reading. You can get it in the bookstore. And let's have some fun together for 8 weeks and keep things rolling. Cool?
So here's a question. Can I come to the morning class 1 week and the evening the next week? Does it matter?
It does not matter to me at all. They're going to build on each other, though, so I encourage you to be at every class. But the material taught will be the same in the morning as in the evening.
So if we're in a small group activity, can I switch groups if that happens? Yes?
Sure.
We'll talk about that later. Yeah. There's always one group, Charles, and one group in every class that always gets together because they're all like orphans from that class. I always put them and say, if you're on the morning class but you're coming to the evening class, this will be your group over there. And it works every time. So there you go. So helping Charles figure that out. Other question? Yes, it will be recorded. So it'll be on YouTube.
So if you're taking it for credit.
If you're taking it for credit, you can only miss one class. And if you're taking it for credit, then you have to make sure you hand the homework in, and Charles has to verify that. All right? And it will be live stream and also recorded. But in order to do that, you have to pay for the tuition so that you can get the link like we're doing for this class. It's not just a free class. Yes? 35 for each class or $240 for the whole package. Right? Is that what we said? Right?
And with the $240 comes accredited.
Yeah. You get accredited if you want to pay the fee to the national. Okay, we ready to go? Yeah. Decisions. Oh my God, life is all about decisions, isn't it? Yeah. How many wish you made different decisions? Yeah? Well, I would say this. There are times when I think I should have made a different decision, but then I think, I look at my life in the aggregate and I'm sort of okay where I'm at. Now, that doesn't mean everything's great, because there are things I would definitely change. But I'm going, if I would have made a different decision. So let me change, before we dive into this chapter, I want to share something with you. So there were many years ago when Trey and I first got together, he was living in Seattle and I was living in Baltimore. And I was looking for a new job. I was going to get out of the airline industry and try my hand at management. And I applied for all these jobs. And I actually had an interview up in Seattle where he and I would have been able to live together. And it was with Alaska Airlines, and it was with their in-flight department. And it was a job made for me. I was so excited. You know how you look at that and you go, oh my God, I'm just perfect. And they're calling me back for my third interview. And how you get excited like that? Yeah, I didn't get it. But then I thought about something. Had I gotten that job, I probably wouldn't be doing this. I would have never moved to the desert. We would have had it, maybe we would have had a kid, maybe not. We would have been living in the Seattle area. Who knows what the trajectory would have been had I. So I kind of feel blessed that I didn't get certain things in my life. Things that I thought I wanted, but when I prayed for the bigger picture unfolded, but it didn't unfold the way I thought it was going to unfold. But ultimately, I ended up where I wanted to be, or where I am. So I'm kind of grateful for all the things that didn't happen, and I'm grateful for the things that did. So yeah, when we've made some decisions, or we moved out to the desert, all these decisions were made. Who knows that? I mean, when I moved out here after Carly was 6 months old, and I would have never ever had a dream that I would be a minister of a church. I mean, that just wasn't in the realm of possibilities. But the universe had a way of making it so that I could have fun with doing what I love, and this is it. This is the result of that. So I would say this. Yeah, we've all made decisions, and we've all had things happen to us, and we think we would have, should have, could have done something different. But I would say this. As long as you're praying and that the general trajectory of your life is moving in one direction, know that it is moving in that direction, and that everything that's happening and unfolding in front of you is a part and stepstone to that process. And while you may not recognize it as such, because it may come up as a challenge or something uncomfortable, recognize that that is indeed exactly what's happening. All those things are stepstones to getting to where you want to go. Ultimately, that dream that you have about your life. Does that make sense? All right, decisions. Last chapter, here we go. Opening, page, I love this. Columbus decided to cross the ocean. The American colonies decided to become a free nation. The Wright brothers decided to create a flying machine. Ooh, this is where he gets real. Okay, I'm going to say the word. He gets really bitchy in this chapter. Did you notice? He's like, okay, everybody's going down. Every improvement in our world has been accomplished by a decisive mind. The faltering minds, the hesitant minds, and the fearful minds have made no contributions to our ways of living. They have been followers and not leaders. They have been lifted up by other people's bootstraps. They have received but not given. They have existed but not fully lived the life that was a gift, a free gift to them. Not having sown creative ideas into their subconscious minds, they could not reap many values in life. They have lived in the light of other people's minds. They are half-hearted, half-living, and half-dead. Wow. Harsh. I mean, way to close out a book, right? I mean, hello. But let's unpack that for a minute. The dreamers. I mean, I'm thankful for the Wright brothers because tomorrow's a big day in our life. Tomorrow's a huge day in my life, and the life of my family. Carly officially starts ground school for flying jets for SkyWest tomorrow at 8 a.m. So I'm grateful for the Wright brothers. Off the payroll. Do I hear an amen? Amen. Yeah, there we go. Okay, good. So grateful for the people who thought outside of the box. Grateful for the people who actually think outside of the box and continue to do that, who push the envelope. I'm grateful for those people. And now there are times when I draft on their creativity. I mean, I'm drafting on people's creativity all the time. I steal so much stuff from people. Not steal, but I mean like one-liners and PowerPoints, right? I steal these ideas and I borrow them. I'll say this, I share them. I move them forward into the universe in a new and unique way. So I like to do that. I mean, that's because I draft off of some of them. But I'm also creating my own, right? And I invite people to be part of their own life so that they're creating their own. So that we're creating an energy. What I like about spiritual economics and what Charles is going to teach is he's going to talk about creating this energy that's moving not just in our community, but out into the community. Taking the potential that exists in this room right now with these people that are here and saying, look, continue to move into this direction because we want this creativity to go out into the world and to change it for something better. It's real easy to lull yourself into the idea that, okay, I've taken 3 weeks of a course, I'm good for a year. Maybe even 2, right? I'm good. But the reality is this, the more you continue to study, the greater the vibration you continue to have, the frequency is starting to change, and the law of attraction, which we're going to talk about, will bring into your experience different things that you've been wanting to attract. So you can't let that spiritual momentum die down. Decisions have to be made. Creativity is a must, all right? The law of attraction is foolproof. Love this part too. Instability. Let's talk about instability first. Then we'll talk about the law of attraction. Next page over. A double-minded man is unstable in all his ways. I would say double-minded man and woman. He negates his real reason for being, to let ideas happen by means of him. We are here in this present life to be the vehicles of ideas. By means of us, they happen. Ideas cannot reveal themselves. They have to have people with minds conditioned to receive them. Are you conditioned to receive the ideas? That's a big question. Many people were not. Growing up, we were not brought up to conceive ideas. We were brought up to learn the ideas of others and to be able to repeat them and to be tested on them and to show our competency that we knew about the ideas of others. And then there was art class and music class. Remember that, where you could be creative? And then the budget cuts in the educational program cut out all the arts. So we went down to reading, writing, and arithmetic, and we lost creativity. And you had to actually pay extra in the systems to be part of a creative system. And that prohibited a lot of people, a lot of young adults that are now young adults, from being part of a creative atmosphere. Does that make sense? And so, but we're not there. You don't have to accept that anymore. Because we can be creative if we choose to do that. We don't have to rely on other people for that creativity. We can be the open mind to a new idea and to bring something to the forefront that will change the conditions in our home life, the conditions in our work life, and the conditions in our communities. But it's incumbent upon us to know that this law of attraction is going to work. He continues to say this. Negative ideas need negatively conditioned people. Wow. Wow. Ouch. Ouch. Positive ideas need creative thinkers, affirmative thinkers. Each of us receives the type of ideas according to our preconditioned consciousness. Bum, ba-dum, bum. Wow. Do you know, I'll share a story. Some of you may have heard this story. I was conditioned in high school by my speech teacher, who told me I should never speak in public. I got up to do a creative, my partner, she and I were assigned together, and both of us failed we were supposed to recite some comedic passage together. And you know how when you're supposed to do that, you're supposed to be straight-faced. Well, I would just giggle. And so I failed, right? And so did she. Interestingly enough, I sent her my copy of DVDs. No bitterness, just education. To remind her that I could actually speak in public. But the other person who was that I worked with, she's now a full-fledged actress, right? I mean, she's acting on screen with Tom Hanks and other people. We went to prom together, not that I would, but anyway. And we giggled the whole time, I think because I knew I was gay, but she didn't. So, I don't know how I got on that. So for the longest time, I always thought, no, you can't do that, because someone in authority told me that, no, you can't do that, right? And as soon as I liberated myself from that idea, creative ideas began happening and creativity kicked in. And I said to my preconditioned pattern, no, that's not who you are. You could be as comfortable in any environment as you want to be, Joe. You just have to step into doing it. So you may have been preconditioned to be a certain way. And we do this. We do this through sex, male, female, races, sexual orientation. There's a preconditioned idea that people have that we need to bust ourselves out of and just see the unique human soaring through those things. And you're one of those things that soar through. We don't have to be part of a preconditioned idea. We can change the preconditioned ideas by representing ourselves well. Does that make sense? I don't need to, I should have never sent her those DVDs with that letter. Although it made me feel really good when she accepted it on FedEx. I'm like, yeah. But that was me in a moment years ago. I've now changed. I'm a changed person. Each of us receives the type of ideas according to our preconditioned consciousness, and we have been conditioning our mind since the day we were born. Review your general areas of thinking in the past 6 months, and you will discover why the ideas now coming into your mind are the kind that they are. They fit into your present subconscious attitudes. If they be great and creative, rejoice. If they are not great and creative, it indicates that you need to do some attitude changing. The law of attraction in mind is foolproof. You draw unto yourself your own. Rest assured that the kind of ideas now functioning in your mind belong there because the atmosphere of your consciousness has induced their arrival and stay. Rewind 6 months ago. And I mean, I've been taking this venture with everybody too. I rewind 6 months ago and go back, okay, what was I doing in the middle of June? And I remember in the middle of June that I was making a really important decision in my life and in the life of the center, and that was to go through with a succession plan, right? And that had to be generated from a decision that had to be that I was making. And then I look back and I go, and what has happened since then? Since that decision was made, what has happened? And I look and actually today it was interesting. I was reviewing the course of things that had happened once that decision was made and other things began to fall into place. Now, it's all changed for everybody, myself included, but a decision had to be made for all of these other things to start happening. They weren't going to happen without a decision. And so what in your life requires a decision right now? Because 6 months from now, you're going to be the result of either making it or not making it. 6 months from now could be the time when you could look back and go, wow, 6 months ago, this is where I was, and now look, right? Or you could say 6 months from now, not a thing has changed, and it's the dead of summer, and now it's too hot to do anything. I have to wait till October. You know what I'm talking, those of us that are here year-round, come on, admit it. When summer hits, it's a hard decision to even go to the grocery store, right? You're like, oh my God, I gotta go, right? Let alone make real life hard decisions. You're like, no, I'll just stay in the air conditioning and ignore the rest of it. Am I right? Okay, we gotta change, we gotta shift that paradigm. We gotta shift it. It's time to shift it because that's not gonna wait. The clock continues to march on whether we're with it or not. And that moment could be the moment when you make a decision that would change what's out there 6 months from now. Okay? All right. Continuing on. You have to want what you want enough to decide you want it. You have to want what you want enough to make a decision to actually do it. Here's where sometimes we don't really want what we think we want. Prime example, and I use this quite often because it's perfectly fitting. I want a relationship. No, you don't. You want a toy to play with. When you're in relationship, that requires work and compromise, and that's not you. Does that sound familiar to anybody? No? Okay, well then I have the wrong group. I want to change my job. Really? How up to date is your resume? I want to audition for this part. I want to do this. I want to create music. I want to be an artist. I want to be a writer. Really? Have you purchased the tools? Okay, if you purchased them, are they still in a box? Are they nicely organized, but have never been touched? You know what I'm talking about. Yeah, one of those days I wanted to become one of those people that can do one of those doodly things, and I'm just not an artist at all, but I thought, I'm going to do this. So I went out and I bought the stuff, and I bought the acrylic paint, and I organized it real neatly, and it's still there. And there's a blank canvas just waiting to have color put on it. And then I end up donating it because my husband says it's just occupying space and you haven't used it in 6 years, so get rid of it. My husband, I have to recycle everything. So are you ready? I want to read this part. You have to decide what you want, and you have to want it enough to make it happen. Page 148. I have found that only those who really want what they want enough to decide that they shall have it will get it what they want. The others mutter at me the great statement, with God all things are possible. They expect me to agree, which I do, but their concept of this statement is that it will be done unto them without any effort on their part. They expect their half-thinking to be rewarded by a whole result. Don't you love him? This last chapter, he's like, "Urgh." This is a spiritual and mental impossibility. Those who have actually decided to have what they want do not expect special favors from the universe. Key word, special favor. I don't expect special favor. I expect the universe to work with the accuracy in which the universe has always worked. And that's to the level of my belief and to exactly how I'm putting things out into the universe, including the thoughts of negativity that surround what I want. My B plan. We talked about the danger of the B plan, right? You know, if you have an A plan, don't create a B plan. You'll come up with the B plan when you need the B plan, because if you create the B plan, the universe hears the B plan, the failure of the A plan, so you're going to get the B plan. Write that out twice. But it's true. Think about it. Because why? It's like I'm cooking, I want a pot of this soup. So I put all the ingredients in this soup. And I turn on the oven, or the stove, and the heat comes on, and now I'm making my soup. Meanwhile, I go, but if this soup doesn't work, I'll make this soup. And so while I'm over here making this soup, my attention isn't on my original soup, right? And it burns and sticks to the bottom of the pan because I'm too busy stirring up the B plan soup. Are you following me? Yeah. Kind of a graphic description, but I'm just trying to get to the plan. Do you understand how that works? But if I would just to concentrate on my plan and concentrate on my soup, I wouldn't have to worry about the other pot of soup, nor spreading the energy of the universe that I want to focus and build something up. No, I'm juggling two things at a time. I don't need to juggle the universe's energy like that. Put it all into one. Jump in. Jump in and make the decision. And don't say, what's the worst that could happen? You're just starting another pot of soup. Does this make sense? So when you decide what you want, then go for it. And don't let anything stand in your way of it. Things are going to pop up. You don't have to beat them up. You have to flow with them and learn to deal with them. There's, that go with the flow thing is really important. Yeah, have you ever it's like the canoe going down the stream. Row, row, row your boat gently down the stream. It doesn't say row, row, row your boat against the tide, against the stream. Because if you do that, you just stay in one place. And you work like hell till you're tired. And a lot of people do that. But take the advice of row, row, row your boat. Gently, not forcefully, down the stream. Go with it. The journey will take you where you want to go. But as soon as I make a decision to be a salmon and feel like I'm constantly fighting to go upstream, I feel like I'm fighting all the time to go where I want to go. And then when I fight and I talk about the struggle, then by the law of attraction, what appears more? More struggle, more fight. Until the point where I go, oh my God, I'm exhausted, and so it is. And then I'm just beat up and I go, I'm not meant to have this. No, you're meant to go with the flow, not fight. Your health, your relationships, your finances, your creativity, it's all one and the same, right? It's all one thing created out of an energy, out of a vibration, out of a frequency. It's just different uses of the same thing. All right? Decide what you want and then want it enough to make it happen. All right, here we go. Toothaches and indecision. Page 150. I like this one too. As a toothache indicates that a visit to the dentist is important, so the indecisive areas in your consciousness indicate that you need some self-examination. Just like a toothache, indecision requires an examination. Let that bake for just a second, all right? Because many times we equate, I need a longer period of indecision, thinking that somehow my healing will take place, but I'm not going to the dentist to fix my tooth. Does that make sense? Because I'm waiting for something to happen in my indecision, but I'm not willing to do something that makes it happen. I'm expecting it, but not taking action to do it. So I'm living in a delusional world that something is going to happen with this indecision that's going to make me happy. I'm not deciding. Are you with me? And so frustration builds through that indecision process, and you wonder why you're not happy. It's because you haven't made a decision to get out of it or to change it. That decision by indecision is a decision to remain the same. And you can't say, I'm searching for an answer. There eventually comes to the point where you have to put the answer down. Think of the universe sometimes not testing you, but requiring you to pick A, B, C, D, Joe. Which one do you want? Pick one. Pick one, and then the universe says, I'm going to create it. I'm going to co-create it. Once you make this decision, I'm going to co-create it with you and give you, imagine this. Imagine if you had a business partner in life that said, I'm going to say yes to you and make available to you everything you need to succeed, and the answer will always be yes. Would you want to go into business with that person? Yeah. You already are. Yeah. You're already in business with that. You're in business with the presence that's waiting for you to say, decide, and let's go. And as soon as you make these decisions, I'll say this, be careful not to outline how they should present themselves along the journey. That make sense? Yes. Stop looking for clues and signs and just keep walking. All right? Correct mental work is easy. Laborious thinking indicates the need for a decision. Correct mental, you know what? When you make the, hey, have you done this? Where you're like, I know that I know, I'm going to do this. And suddenly, you're like, that was easy. You actually want to go buy that button from Staples. It goes, that was easy, right? That was easy. That was easy. I think maybe we should do that. Maybe we should all go buy buttons from Staples, that electric thing that when you press it says that was easy.
They still sell them?
Oh, of course they do. I'm sure they do. We'll find them. I'm sure they're on Amazon. But maybe we should all have those. And at the morning you go, that was easy. And throughout the day you hit, that was easy. And at night you go, that was easy. I think that was a brilliant idea. Because I know. Because not creative, but think about it. But the more that we have that, that affirmation in our heads, the more believable it becomes in our subconscious mind, the more understanding and the more easier things begin to unfold. If we were just actually, that was easy, but laborious thinking indicates the need for a decision. And I know this. I get that way too about sometimes making some decisions. But I also know sometimes I wait to make a decision and I actually know what I'm supposed to do, you know? But I just don't want to make the decision. I don't want to declare it. I know it, but I don't want to declare it because once I declare it, then it becomes my truth. And then I have to do whatever it takes. And usually that's the downside. Because once I declare it, and this is tough, once you declare it, the universe starts to create it, that horse has left the barn. You know? And it doesn't mean you can't change your mind to do something else, but the reality is, if it becomes laborious, in other words, you're really struggling with this decision, then it's time to actually make one. All right? Directed thinking. Move to directed thinking for me, page 133. Or excuse me, 153. Excuse me. Intelligent, causative thinking is thinking that is goal-directed and not impeded by emotional drawbacks. I believe this to be the normal thinking of each one of us. All else is abnormal thinking. I cannot believe that the subconscious mind was created to give us troubles. Being born of the infinite, its basic motivation must be that of health, happiness, love, and expression. I like that. That makes me feel good. Does that make you feel good? Yes. The question is, do I have emotional drawbacks? It makes me feel good to read that, but then do I have some unhealed emotional issue that actually keeps me from experiencing those things? Do I have some belief or some, I don't know, something haunting me that keeps me from believing that that's what I'm supposed to experience? So you have to ask yourself that question. Many times we do. And that's the one thing that so we get really close to our demonstration, we get really close to it. We taste it, right? You're like, oh my God, I'm almost there. And then there's this hesitancy on our part to fully recognize it because of that emotional previous malignancy. We need to have it removed because it's holding us back from actually going all in. Going all into our relationships, going all into our health, going all into our financial security, going all into our creativity. So maybe we need to look at that if there's something that we have in our past that may have some emotional connection to it, then maybe it's time to look at that. Maybe it's time to get with a practitioner or a minister to actually sit down and go, hey, listen. Because I tell you what, many times as a minister, I sit down with people many times and I can play almost instant rewind, and within 15 minutes, we can go back and go, oh, okay, wait a minute. This is where we can pinpoint that this is when this started. And now you've been carrying this from this distance to this distance. And now do you want to carry it further, or can we go back and somehow heal this thing that has occupied your ability, or occupied or preoccupied your ability for moving forward? That has taken over. Does that make sense? All right. Great ideas need you. Of course they do. Right? 156. Great ideas need you. Ideas need you. They will be born by means of someone somewhere, so it might not just be you. If the idea is a great one, it may startle you. You may feel inadequate to grasp it and give it an embodiment. 2 sentences down. Your present state of consciousness has to attract that idea. So, get this. If you have the idea, the universe is already telling you that you are equipped to follow through with this, or you would have never been given that idea. Now, sometimes an idea like that haunts us. We go, oh no, I'm not doing that. And we reject the idea of growth and expansion because something in us tells us we can't do it or we won't do it. But I would have never had that idea if it wasn't meant to unfold for me, or I don't lack the capability. I have the capability. I have the ability. Everything is available at my disposal if I wake up to it, or I can ignore it and say I can't, which means I won't. And I can give you a million excuses as to why. You want to know what some of them are? Oh, name them. You know them. Everybody has them. I'm too old. I'm too this. I'm too that. I'm too set in my ways. I've screwed up enough. I'm guarded. I can't let this happen again. A billion excuses as to why one can't enter into their own recovery. That makes sense? We all have them. All right, great ideas need you. You need the idea as much as the idea needs you. Do not turn it aside. Examine it. Ponder. Think of creative ways in which you can make it happen. We unconsciously often reject startling ideas. They seem too big for us. Their acceptance would make too many changes in our life. You know, okay, I'll go there. I'll go there. Yeah, I will. I'll go there. Startling revelations, right? So, you know, as Trey and I are talking about this retirement thing, some things pop up that are really uncomfortable, right? Like where we should be living. Should we stay here? Should we move? Should we go this? Should we do this? And it's startling, and there are times when I'm like, I don't want to entertain that. I don't want to entertain this idea of moving somewhere else or doing something. Because to me, it's a startling idea that I can't wrap my arms around. But in the reality going, why is this startling? Why is this scaring me? Because I'm like, because it requires me to enter into a zone that I'm not comfortable at all. I love my routine. I love my drill. I love my people. I love my friends. I love my connections. To leave that would be startling. But I'm thinking, but there's valid reasons why to leave this area, right? So I'm telling you that I deal with a decision like this. I'm going, okay, how do I want to deal with this? Do I want to make this my part-time home? Do I want to, what does that look like? And we all have decisions to make about what we want to do, where we want to live, how we want to see our life unfold. And sometimes the startling ideas come up, and they're the ideas we're actually meant to follow, but we discard them because it requires us to go way out of our comfort zone. But I can tell you, I know people that have done that. I know people that have uprooted their life and moved to certain areas of the country or even certain communities away and went, best thing we ever did. Right? To get up and do it. Hated it, dreaded it, had to, push and shove, but when we made the decision to do it, so glad we did it. It presented a quality of life that we didn't have before. Does that make sense? So, if that's happened to you, get this. If it happened to you and you went through it and you're like really glad it went through, then why would you hesitate to make another one? Because if the universe unfolded that way the first time, why would you hesitate to think that it won't unfold the second time? What within you doesn't believe that the universe is capable of creating, happiness twice? Does that make sense? All right. Unexpected dividends. Delete the word impossible and replace with unexpected. I like this. Page 159. The word impossible is deleted from your vocabulary. It no longer has meaning. In its place now is the word unexpected. You are ready for that which is yet to be, knowing that all ideas concerning it are already in your mind and will appear on time and in order. It's not impossible, unexpected, right? Continuing. You expect the unexpected and you welcome it as it appears in your consciousness and in your world. You expect health, for you have no fear of illness. You know that there is nothing in your consciousness to cause illness. All mental and emotional conflicts have left forevermore. You expect your prosperity to be completely normal and continuous. Did you hear that? Did you hear that? Yes. Do you expect here? No. People don't. People don't expect that. We have to shift the idea around that energy. That is one area that in my 20 years of teaching this has been the stickler for people. When it comes to prosperity, people can look at a healing in their health. They continue to have flow in their healing. They continue to have flow in their relationships and positive, loving relationships. They continue to have flow in their creativity. But when it comes to the issue of prosperity and money, they suddenly go, I didn't know a thing about metaphysics. They ignore everything that they've proven to be true in every other category in their life. But when it comes to that, that's the one I'm uncomfortable with. It's been that way for years. I think it's that way for a lot of people because that approaches an issue that for some reason people think it's separate and apart from spirituality. It's an interesting concept until you learn how to do it, until you learn how to spiritually know about how money, prosperity, and the energy around it, how that works, that money is really not money, it's just energy, and people attract money, they attract energy or repel energy, and if it's an energy and it's used to create freedom and happiness, then why wouldn't you tap into that energy? But because of what we call it and its impact, it doesn't fit into the category of spiritual laws unfolding until you learn how to use it. So interesting. People want to believe that, but sometimes they don't prove that, all right? You have decided that it shall be so. Next thing, you expect to be happy, for now you realize that happiness is your normal creative state of living. You are neither ashamed of being happy nor afraid of being happy. I know people that are ashamed of being happy and successful. I've shared this story. I'm sorry I repeat my stories. I feel like I'm somebody else repeating the stories over and over again. But I remember when my grandmother would tell my mother that you can't buy a Cadillac because that's too show-offy. You'd be showing off if you bought one, right? Even though my dad worked really hard as a superintendent of schools, my mom was a school teacher, they did very well. But Grandma told them that you can't drive that kind of a car. You have to drive a Buick. You can't drive a Cadillac because a Cadillac, that's a show. You're being a show-off. So they drove a Cadillac to her funeral. Pulled right up, big old white thing with the Cadillac sign on it. And not that they were happy that they left, but they were just happy that they could finally drive the car because there was a stigma attached to it. God forbid people know that. Dr. Tom, the founder of this center, had a Bentley that he would not park out in front. He would hide it and park on the other side of the school because he didn't want people to know that he had a Bentley. He was challenged by that. Edwene Gaines, you know Edwene Gaines? Yes. Yeah, she challenged him on that. In fact, Tom's in her book. Talked about it. That how do you expect money to flow if you're ashamed of it? And there was a certain stigma that I thought, wow, do I feel that way about things? Do I feel that way about certain things where I go, oh, don't show anybody this because they might think something? God forbid they think.
When I hear from friends and they say how ill they are and they say, how are you? And I say, we're doing great. I feel comfortable.
Yeah, perfect example. People will tell you how sick they are, and when they say, how are you, you feel guilty for telling them you feel good. That's brilliant. It's true, isn't it? Isn't that true? Sometimes we feel guilty telling friends that aren't doing well that we're doing well. That somehow there's some stigma attached to wellness or financial security or being in right loving relationships or being happy in your job or being happy doing what you do. That somehow other people's life is diminished because you're doing what you want to do. So make a decision to just, stand and authorize your experience without the shame of that. I have to listen to that because, as life progresses, there are things I go, okay, yeah, I have to process that myself. Because there are certain stigmas around certain things, or at least I feel that they're there, and I have to go, why do I feel that way? Why would you feel that way? And it's exactly that, that's what it is. You don't want people to know that you're happy. People, I'll say this, it's really crappy. There are people that want me to feel badly that I'm retiring. And they tell me that. They're like, and when I tell them how excited I am, they're like, oh, no, you can't be that like that. Don't you know how that's impacting me? And I'm like, but I got news for you. Didn't listen to that one iota. I have no shame about doing what I'm doing. I'm excited about what I'm doing. And I'm excited for you all because everything is unfolding as it should for change for everybody, everyone included, Charles, everybody. So everything, when I don't stand and say, oh, I feel badly about that, no, you're never going to hear that. I mean, there are moments where I cry because I feel a sense of loss and grief. And that's perfectly fine because life is changing. But there's also an excitement about my life. So I want to find out from you, is there something in your life that you're saying, I don't want to experience, or people are telling you you're not supposed to be happy about this, but you really are, and you haven't been sharing it, you haven't been sharing your light and your happiness because you're afraid of what people might think of you. You have to ask yourself that. And you know what? Do you really care? No. I'm getting to the point now where like, I think in my 40s I cared more. Now that I'm a little older, now I just say what I think, and it kind of gets me in trouble. All right, here we go. Let's cover some expectations. Page 160. How are we doing on time? We're doing great. 160. Oh, I already did. Did that. Trust in life. Going on. Trust in life. Page 162. I love that last sentence. You are not a biological accident. Listen to this. You are a programmed individual, individualizing the magnificence of life. Any feeling of your inferiority or insignificance is ridiculous. Don't you love that? And yet it's so easy to feel insignificant, right? I mean, not everybody's going to rise to a certain level. I have to feel we have to feel successful in our own right, in our own skin, and be happy with that. Goes on to say this, when you trust the creative power of the universe, you know what real relaxation is. You do not have to solve the problems of the world unless you are the head of government. You do not have to solve other people's troubles unless you're a professional counselor. You do have to solve your own problems, and this you do without fuss and anxiety. You make right decisions and let the subconscious mind do the work. Your attitude is, I am resolved what to do. Therefore, tensions regarding decisions cannot arise in your mind, body, and emotions. To trust in life reduces the pressures of everyday living. Okay, so let's back into this. How many of us do feel like we have to solve the problems of the world? Have you ever been to Keaty's? Keaty's, the restaurant. Have you ever had breakfast at Keaty's? Have you ever been alone at breakfast at Keaty's? Have you ever listened to the conversations around the table at breakfast at Keaty's? It's a real interesting place to have breakfast. I remember my dad going there quite often when he would go there by himself, and I would stop in, and he would be with a bunch of people solving the world's problems. And I'm like, wow, okay, good luck with that. Exactly. I mean, I was like, okay, good luck with that. But at the end of the day, they kind of left frustrated because the way that they came up with solutions were kind of never implemented, right? It's not up to you to solve the world's problems. It's not up to you to solve, it's up for you to solve your own problems. It's up for you to look at your life and know that they're solvable. That's one of the biggest issues. Can you look at your problems and challenges in your life and know that they're solvable, resolvable? I mean, is there a possibility? Is there a possibility that it's solvable and resolvable? And I would say yes. I mean, okay, so I'll go to confession here. I admit that there have been times in my life where I have felt very low and depressed where I thought there wasn't an option like that I didn't think things were solvable or resolvable. And I'm very blessed that I had people who cared enough about me to get me in the right path and to correct that wrong thinking, right? And to help me seek the therapy and things I needed at the time to change that. But so I relied on other people to see me rightly, and they did, which is what a practitioner does. to see me rightly. So there are times in our life where sometimes I think people get to that place where they feel like this is not solvable or resolvable. But I just have to go back and say, question that, go back and ask that question with the curiosity of faith that you've had when you've read this book. Go back and ask that question and think and say, is there really something unsolvable that the universe, God, can't solve? Am I open or am I locked down to thinking that could open the door and create an avenue in which a healing could occur? And how do I unlock that door so that I'm now open in my mind to walk in that place of healing? Does that make sense? So, you are not a biological accident. Trust in life. Next thing, bodies die, not people. Bodies die, not people. You are not your body. You are an individual using a body. You have had many bodies during your lifetime. You started with the newborn baby's body, about 6 to 8 pounds in weight. 6 years later, you had a different body. At 14, you had another body type. At 30, you had another. Your present body is temporary. Notice he stops at 30. Observation. Your present body is, damn him. Your present body is temporary, as were the ones you used all through your years of living. You, as consciousness, move through these bodies. You, as consciousness, will continue to flow through bodies, not visible to your family and friends, but very visible to you. When you state that a dear friend just died, you are talking about his or her body only. Consciousness cannot die. I think that, and when you look at that, I love that statement. You know, we're all here in these, you know, body suits with hair. And you just have to know that consciousness continues to live on. When they talk about how the soul continues to live on, that's what I think they're talking about, the consciousness of that energy. Because energy can never be dissolved, or it can only be transformed. You can't stop the energy, it just transforms itself. So that's kind of comforting in some respects. That while I can't maybe pick up a phone and talk to someone, there's an energy and a vibration that I know I've aligned with different people in my life. You know, and I can actually call on that energy and vibration to commune with it, but not the way I used to. In fact, people often ask me what happens when you die, and you know how when you, and I liken it to this, you know how when you think of someone and suddenly your phone rings and it's them? Or you think of them and suddenly a text out of nowhere comes up, or an email and you haven't heard from them in years, but suddenly, boom, there they are? Okay, so my idea, and it's not proven, of course, but it's just my idea, is that when we move into our next experience, you're not going to be able to, because interesting that he stopped at age 30. Is that your way you're going to recognize me when we get to this place called heaven, Joe in his 30? Because if you do, I was a lot thinner with a lot more hair. just so we could acknowledge that later. But I don't think that's how we recognize each other, because this is nothing more than a suit, but you recognize consciousness and vibration. And we align with that consciousness and vibration. And that vibration and consciousness is always here. And when we change from here to there, it doesn't change. This outside changes, but that doesn't change. And we continue to vibrate and have that communion with that experience of other people's vibration. Does that make sense? Yeah. And it's all loving. All right? The fabulous 50s. Oh, I like that. Well, wait, before we go there. Most of us are not really valuable to life until we are past 50. Take that, bitch. All right. Sorry, didn't mean to say that out loud, but true. I mean, come on. Little 30-year-old thinking they got something on me. Many people are at their most creative peak when their bodies cease functioning. No. You and I have a great deal of vital living to do in the millions of years ahead of us. There is no heaven and there is no hell, but there are creative ideas in this ever-expanding universe where we keep on being ourselves. God will still be in business 1,000 years from now, and we are God's business. I love that line. God will always be in business 1,000 years from now, and we are God's business. And in business, what do you have to make? Decisions. So, if you're in the business of life, which we all are, you're in the business of living this life. When you're in business, you have to make business decisions. A business owner that doesn't make decisions isn't going to be open very long. Their business will crumble. Or a business owner who allows other people to make decisions on their behalf will end up giving that business to them because they can't even manage their own business. You are in your own business. You may be married and have shared your business with someone else, but you are still in your own business. And there's only one person that makes that life decision and that about being in that business, and that's you. And you're in the business of your own health. Don't blame someone else. You're in the business of your own relationships. Look to you for that. Look to you for that inspiration and curiosity. You're in the business of your own personal finances and financial security. Don't look to somewhere outside of yourself for that. You are in business for that. You're in business of your creativity and your work. Each one of us we're always all in business, and God is not going out of business, and neither are you. So it's incumbent upon you to wake up and make some decisions in your life in those areas so you continue to move forward in your business. Expanding your business, so to speak. Sharing your business and the light and wisdom that you have. We're in business to be of service to other people. You go into business to help yourself and help other people, correct? The same thing about our own life. How do I help myself while helping other people? Am I in the business of helping other people, or am I just in the business of serving myself? If I'm in the business of serving myself, eventually I'm going to run out of business because there's nobody that's going to need me to show up, right? There's only one client, that would be me. But no, I'm in business for life, which means other people need to be able to interact and flow into my experience. How am I being of service to them? How am I being of service to them? And not just always getting paid to do the business, but being in the business of life, which sometimes means volunteering for things and helping other people and expecting nothing in return. Because that's the law of cause and effect. You start creating a life that's balanced and has that type of order and balance to it, you'll find that a lot of happiness is derived from helping other people. I deeply appreciated my volunteer work. Trey and I used to do volunteer work, and probably one of the most impactful experiences we had was in Redondo Beach when we used to work at a church. And on Tuesday nights, we would feed people, and I don't want to call them homeless people because a lot of them weren't homeless. A lot of them had to decide whether they were going to pay their rent or feed their children. And they would pay their rent, and then they would come to us and eat on Tuesday nights, just in this one little church. And I remember cooking the food. We'd get there at 1 o'clock in the afternoon, and we would Trey was in charge of the Thousand Island dressing. There's a whole story about that. Painstakingly make the food, fresh food. We would make fresh food, and we would, and I'm not a good cook, but I learned how to cut and be a part of a system that made fresh food for these people. And I remember we would open the doors, and we would watch people come in, and it tested our judgment. It tested the way we judge people and the way we look at people. And it tested us in the way that we went, okay, how am I looking at being of service in this way? And can I sit there and look at these individuals and not create a storyline around them or judgment around them? You know, because you saw people that were homeless, but you also saw drug addicts. And you're like, how do I not create a dialogue in my mind so I judge them? But no, I'm there to feed them, to give them a nourishing meal, and to be of service. And I remember feeling when we would leave that night, we would feel so blessed. Not just because of our own life, but because we were actually of service to other people and expected nothing in return. And we would bid our days off for a whole month. We would shift our entire flight schedules. So we were home on Tuesday nights. It was like our number one thing to do. And the whole month, we bid everything around Tuesday night so that we could be there to be of service to other people. So the power of decision is also this. How are you deciding to serve other people? How are you volunteering? How are you, how's this? Outside of showing up on Sunday, how are you being of service to your spiritual community that's serving you? Or are you one of those that are just taking and not giving back? Not guilting and shaming, but calling it the balance of something. Where are you putting your service into your own life? We spend a lot of time doing life. The well-balanced life has a component of service to it. The reason why is because it gives us great appreciation when you do it, and you know what I'm talking about. It gives you great appreciation for all that you have and all that you don't have. So make a decision, is when you're making all these decisions about these other areas of your life, there's a spiritual decision to be made. And that spiritual decision is, how am I going to show up in my spiritual community? How am I going to show up and be of service? It's not about writing a check. It's like, how am I showing up? How am I volunteering? How am I doing for others? It's amazing. Just yesterday, we were at Target, and there was this man who was crossing Highway 111. You know Target in Cathedral City? This man was crossing Highway 111. He was in a wheelchair, and he was all by himself, and he was wheeling backwards to try to cross. He lives over there. He lives around there. And I'm like, I immediately got out of the car, and I'm like, just pull over. Trey's like, what? I said, no, pull over. And I went, and I just helped him get up on the curb. Just something that simple, to be of service to someone else. And I don't know his story. I don't need to know his story. All I knew is he needed to get from here to there, and I was capable of pulling over and doing something to help someone else, and not just go like this. It's easy to go like this, isn't it? It's easy to turn and go, that's not who I am. It's not what I'm doing. But it's more challenging to the individual to get up and to actually be of service. So we're there. Summing it up, page 164. Are we ready? I have written about 50,000 words on the science of decision. You have read them. No book can ever be a final authority. The final authority is only in the individual mind and its opinions which lead to decisions. You are an active intelligence functioning in a universe of intelligence which always responds to you as you present yourself to it. Let me repeat that because I don't want to stutter on that. You are an active intelligence functioning in a universe of intelligence that always responds to you as you present yourself to it. You are active intelligence using the intelligence. You are more than a human mind managing to get through 70 or 90 human years. You are more than family, job, home, and recreation. You are a creator creating creation. You are an infinite possibility. You will never know the full greatness that you are. As you think of yourself in larger terms, you invite larger ideas into your consciousness. Your decisions regarding these ideas are the way life becomes to you. Individuality means independence. Independence means the necessity for assuming self-authority. Let's review this. Individuality means independence. Independence means the necessity for assuming self-authority. Standing and authorize your own experience. You were not born to be like other people. You are a unique representation of an infinite source. You are always free to fail or to succeed. Nothing is predestined. That was one of the biggest things that I learned when I came into this teaching, because I always thought that I'm just going through the videotape of my life. It wasn't until I came into this teaching that I realized the videotape, it's not done. I'm creating it as I go through my life. I'm not going through some predestined path at some destination which has already been written at the last page of the chapter of that book. I'm of this universal intelligence and consciousness creating this thing called the DVD of my life. And I continue to create it by the decisions I make. None of the decisions are predestined. That's the best part of the first chapter of the book. We were given the power to decide, and we have our own ability to make decisions and freedom about ourselves to do so. That's the greatest gift. We've been given the power to make these decisions. We're really fortunate that we live in this world that we do, in this place that we do, in this country that we do, where people aren't making those decisions for us, where you have the power and authority to make them for yourself. That's huge. Some people don't have that. Like I shared my story, some people don't have that. And they're accustomed to that. We are accustomed to making our own decisions and have the free will to do that. The question is, are you making the decisions that are going to put you in a place where you're happy with the outcome of this? Where you look and you continue to reflect and go, yeah, and look, who here hasn't made a bad decision? Who here hasn't gone like this and said, oh man, what was I thinking? What was I thinking? I wasn't thinking. Usually I wasn't thinking, actually. But they were still made on my behalf. I made them on my behalf. So I take responsibility for the way it unfolded. Goes on to say this. To change long-standing negative habit patterns in the subconscious mind is not easy, but it can be done and you can do it. The valley of indecision and the mountaintops of decision are both available to you. By taking authority over your own mind and emotions, you can have great mountaintop experiences. You leave behind, you leave behind you the valley with its shadows. You leave behind you half living. You have assumed the responsibility of being the light to your own world. You know that you can achieve what you want to achieve. You know that all life responds to you as an infinite givingness and fills full the cup you give to it. The size of the cup you determine. A tanker truck, honey, not a big gulp. Your subconscious mind is a divine instrument. Its dexterity and precision will never be fully known. Think about that. What do they say? We're using 12% capacity of our brain. 12%. 12%. Would you want 12% on a test? Isn't that amazing? 12%. What if we just upped it by 1 percentage point? I mean, seriously. What if we did that? But 12%. So we'll never know. So when people say to you, and actually when I say to myself, I don't want to understand that, like computer technology and certain things, I'm like, no, I don't want to do that. I can't do that. No, what I'm telling myself is I don't want to activate the extra percentage in my brain to try to put my arms around it and learn it, right? We all could because we're all only operating at 12%. Think about it. Wouldn't you tell a friend operating at 12% you need to pick it up? Just saying. It is the greatest gift that you have. It is beyond price. It is what you are as a creative individual. It accepts the impress of your thought and acts upon it. It knows neither good nor evil, yet its processes can create both. Wise men have said that all creation is the result of the law and the word. The subconscious is the law. What you place in it is the word. This is the play of life upon itself. A correct definition of a spiritually acclaimed individual is one whose conscious mind, operating in a field of subconscious creative intelligence, gives its creative decisions, which it then produces as experience. For such a man or woman, there is a full life. They are not only fulfilled themselves, they are also able to give greatly to others. Of them can be said, he hath done all things well. You are invited to join their ranks and have all the benefits that accompany right decisions. What the mind can conceive, you can achieve. Great book, yeah? And I know that we could do a 12-week course on this, and that this was a cram course. I know that. And I'm not going to apologize for it because I really do feel like the people that have attended here, and look at how many of you are in a class. I mean, this is sort of unprecedented to have this many people in a class. So when you show up like this, you've already told the universe by your presence here that you have unlocked the mind and you're open to making these decisions. Or you wouldn't be here. The universe called you here, I believe, for you to make those decisions. And you've shown up. And for those of you live streaming, same thing. You've shown up. You're getting this material. Why? Because something within you, there's a divine urge within you. There's a voice within you saying, okay, it's time. I need to make some decisions about my world. And this is the good place to start. And it's a good ground to start beginning to cultivate, to learn those things. So what I want you to do right now is I want you to grab that worksheet number 3, and we're just going to do a real quick session with someone that you like close by that you're not in relationship with. Find a partner, and then once you find the partner, I will give you directions. So find your partner, please. Okay, all you're going to do is take what you wrote down, and now here's what I need to have you promise me, okay? Whatever this person is sharing with you, consider it sacred. Treat it like it's sacred information, like it's really important, because it really is. If someone took the time to write something down and they're expressing a part of their heart, let's acknowledge that with respect. Listen to understand, not to respond, remember? So we're listening, we're checking our listening skills. We're listening to understand, not to respond. And we're doing so with an open, loving heart. And so just allow this person to share with you their old beliefs and their new beliefs. And when you're listening to their new beliefs, I want you to kind of pray silently for them and hold them up. In your mind, don't give yourself a million reasons as to why what they're saying doesn't make sense. It makes complete sense to them, and that's all that matters. Hold them up for their greater good. All right? So we're going to take a few minutes to do that. We'll probably take like 10 minutes, so 5 minutes each. Everybody, have fun. Go for it. If you haven't done so, please switch partners. Make sure the other person had a chance to go.